Welcome to Monk's Temple. Let us begin together. Find a comfortable position. Perhaps you are sitting in a chair, or lying in bed, or resting on a couch. Wherever you are, allow your body to settle. There is nowhere you need to go right now. Nothing you need to accomplish. This time is simply for you. Close your eyes if that feels comfortable. If not, just let your gaze rest softly on something in front of you. Notice the weight of your body. Feel the places where your body makes contact with the surface beneath you. Just notice. No need to change anything. Now, bring your attention to your breath. Don't try to control it. Just feel the natural rhythm of breathing in and breathing out. The breath breathes itself, doesn't it? It happens all on its own, without any effort from you. You are not making yourself breathe right now. Breathing is simply happening through you. This is our first small taste of what Buddhism points toward. The Buddha, the awakened one who lived more than 2,000 years ago, made a radical observation. He noticed that most human suffering comes from one simple mistake: we believe we are in control. We believe we are the author of our experience, the CEO of our own little universe. But look at the breath. You aren't breathing it. It's breathing you. And in that small gap, that tiny crack in the illusion of control, something else becomes visible. Something that was there all along. What we are going to explore together in these hours is not a philosophy to learn or a belief system to adopt. It is a homecoming. It is the slow, gentle process of remembering something you have always known but somehow forgot. The tradition that carries this remembering is called Zen. It is a branch of Buddhism that specializes in cutting through the noise and pointing directly at what is real. Now, let me ask you something. Think about the last time you felt truly at peace. Not excited, not entertained, not distracted, just peacefully present. Maybe it was watching a sunset. Maybe it was holding a sleeping child. Maybe it was simply sitting with a cup of coffee on a quiet morning before the world woke up. In that moment, you weren't trying to be anywhere else. You weren't scrolling through your phone or making mental to-do lists. You were just there. Completely there. What happened in that moment? The thinking mind, the constant commentator, the inner voice that narrates your life, it took a break. For just a few seconds, maybe a minute, there was no separation between you and the experience. You and the sunset were not two things. You and the warm cup were not two things. There was only the experience itself, pure and simple. This is what Zen is pointing toward. Not as a rare, accidental glimpse, but as your natural, permanent state. The problem is not that peace is hard to find. The problem is that we spend our entire lives looking past it, searching for something more exciting, more impressive, more spiritually advanced. We are like someone searching for water while standing in the middle of a lake, complaining of thirst. If this resonates with you, if you sense that there might be another way to live, a way that doesn't involve constant striving and anxiety, then you have found the right place. This channel exists to explore these ancient teachings and translate them into language that can help you right now, in your actual life. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to Monk's Temple. We are building a community of people who are tired of spiritual entertainment and hungry for genuine transformation. Join us. Let me tell you a story. There was once a woman who had spent 20 years searching for enlightenment. She had studied with teachers in India, sat in monasteries in Burma, practiced with roses in Japan. She had read hundreds of books, completed countless retreats, and accumulated enough spiritual knowledge to fill a library. But still, something was missing. Still, she felt like a seeker, not a finder. One day, exhausted and discouraged, she sat down under a tree to rest. She wasn't meditating. She wasn't practicing. She was just sitting, too tired even to think. A small bird landed on a branch near her head and began to sing. It wasn't a particularly beautiful song, just an ordinary bird making an ordinary sound. But in that moment, something shifted. The woman didn't hear the bird with her ears alone. She heard it with her whole being. There was no separation between the sound and the listener. There was just singing. Just awareness. Just this. When the bird flew away, the woman sat in stunned silence. 20 years of searching, and the answer had been waiting for her under a tree, in the song of an ordinary bird. She hadn't needed more teachings. She had needed to stop looking past what was already here. This is the heart of Zen. It's not about acquiring something new. It's about removing the obstacles that prevent you from seeing what has always been true. You are not a seeker. You are the one who was seeking, and the one who was sought, and the seeking itself, all appearing in the vast, open space of awareness. Let's sit with that for a moment. Let's go deeper. In modern psychology, there is a concept called the narrative self. This is the story you tell yourself about who you are. I am the kind of person who. I was born in this place, I have these strengths and these weaknesses, I have this history, these wounds, these aspirations. This narrative feels real. It feels like the very core of your identity. But here is the interesting thing. If you pay close attention, you will notice that this narrative self is not a solid thing. It is a process. It is a constantly changing stream of thoughts, memories, and judgments. The story you tell yourself about who you are today is slightly different from the story you told yourself 5 years ago. And the thoughts that make up this story, where do they come from? You don't choose them. They arise on their own, unbidden, like bubbles rising in a pot of boiling water. Buddhism, from its very beginning, pointed to this truth. The Buddha taught that what we call the self is really just 5 aggregates coming together: form, sensation, perception, mental formations, consciousness. These 5 things are constantly interacting, constantly changing, constantly flowing. There is no permanent, fixed, you behind them. There is just the flowing. Just the process. This sounds abstract, I know. So let's make it personal. Think about a memory that feels important to your identity. Maybe it's something you achieved, or something you survived, or something you regret. Now, notice where that memory lives. Can you point to it? Is it in your head somewhere? If a surgeon opened your brain, would they find that memory sitting there like a little file folder? No. A memory is not a thing. It is a pattern of firing neurons, a chemical process, a story your brain tells itself in the present moment about something that supposedly happened in the past. Now here is the really radical part. That memory only exists right now. The past itself is gone. It cannot be found anywhere in the universe. What you call your past is actually a series of thoughts arising in the present moment, thoughts that you have learned to label as memory. But they are happening now. Everything you experience, everything, is happening now. The past is a thought happening now. The future is a thought happening now. There is only now. This is not just philosophy. This is a direct, verifiable truth that you can investigate for yourself. Right now, as you listen to these words, notice that you are not actually in the past. You are not actually in the future. You are here, in this moment, with these sounds, these sensations, this breath. The past exists only as a thought in this moment. The future exists only as a thought in this moment. This moment is all there ever is. Let me tell you another story. A young man came to visit an old master who lived in a small hut at the edge of a forest. The young man was a philosopher, trained in the finest universities, skilled in debate. He had come to challenge the master, to prove that his own intellectual understanding was superior. "Old man," the young philosopher said, "I have studied all the great texts. I understand the nature of reality. I know that the self is an illusion and that time is a construct. Is there anything you can teach me that I don't already know?" The master smiled and invited the young man to sit down for tea. He poured tea into the young man's cup until it was full. But he didn't stop. He kept pouring, and the tea spilled over the sides of the cup, onto the saucer, onto the table, onto the young man's robes. "What are you doing?" the young man shouted, jumping up. "The cup is full. Nothing more can go in." The master looked at him calmly and said, "Like this cup, your mind is so full of what it already knows that nothing new can enter. Before you can learn anything, you must first empty your cup." The young man was stunned. In that moment, he understood something that no book had ever taught him. His knowledge had become an obstacle. His ideas about enlightenment were actually preventing enlightenment. He had been so busy defending what he knew that he had never actually looked at what was real. This is the challenge Zen presents to us. Everything you think you know about yourself, about life, about spirituality, it might be the very thing keeping you asleep. The goal is not to add more knowledge. The goal is to see clearly, directly, without the filter of concepts and beliefs. So let me ask you, what are you holding on to? What beliefs about yourself have become so familiar that you mistake them for the truth? What stories do you tell yourself that keep you small, keep you safe, keep you stuck? Just notice them. You don't need to get rid of them. You don't need to fight them. Just see them for what they are, thoughts. Stories. Mental events arising and passing away in the vast space of awareness. And who is it that notices them? Not the story self. The story self is what is being noticed. The one noticing is something else entirely. Something that has never been born and will never die. Something that was never wounded and needs no healing. Something that has been here all along, quietly witnessing everything, asking nothing, wanting nothing, lacking nothing. That something is what Zen calls your original face. The face you had before your parents were born. The awareness that you are, before any story was ever added. Just rest here for a moment. In that awareness. Not trying to get anywhere. Not trying to understand. Just resting. Let me tell you about a woman named Elena. Elena was a successful therapist in a large city. She helped people with anxiety, depression, and relationship problems. She was good at her job. She had studied all the research, mastered all the techniques. Her clients left her office feeling heard and validated. But Elena had a secret. At night, lying in bed, the same anxiety that plagued her clients visited her. She worried about her daughter, who had stopped speaking to her. She worried about her aging mother. She worried about her own health. She practiced meditation. She used all the tools she taught others. But the anxiety remained, a quiet hum beneath everything. One day, an older man came to see her. He was dressed simply, with a calm presence Elena noticed immediately. He didn't complain about anxiety. He said he just wanted to talk. About what? Elena asked. About what is real, the man said. Elena was taken aback. But something in his eyes made her put aside her usual protocols. For the next hour, they sat together in silence. At first, Elena was uncomfortable. Her mind raced. But gradually, she stopped fighting the silence and simply rested in it. And in that rest, she noticed something extraordinary. The silence was not empty. It was full. Full of a kind of awareness she had never noticed before. When the session ended, the man stood to leave. At the door, he turned back. The anxiety you carry is real. But it is not yours. It is just anxiety, appearing and disappearing in awareness. And the one who notices it, that is what is real. You have just been too busy looking at the clouds to notice the sky. After he left, Elena sat for a long time. She realized that for 20 years, she had been helping clients manage their clouds, their anxious thoughts, their painful memories. She had never once pointed to the sky. This is the revolution Zen brings to psychology. Modern therapy mostly operates at the level of the clouds. It helps you rearrange your clouds, understand them, maybe calm them. But Zen asks a more fundamental question: who is it that is looking at the clouds? The Buddha himself made this distinction clear. He spoke of two darts. The first dart is the unavoidable pain of life, illness, loss, disappointment. These happen to everyone. The second dart is the suffering we add on top, the stories we tell about the pain, the resistance, the fear that it will never end. The first dart is the cloud. The second dart is our reaction to the cloud. And here is the liberating truth. While we cannot always control the first dart, we can learn to stop throwing the second dart. We can experience pain without adding suffering. This is not about suppression. It is about discovering that you are not the clouds. You are the sky. And the sky is never damaged by the clouds. The storm happens within the sky, but the sky remains untouched. Let me give you a modern example. Imagine you are stuck in traffic. You are already late. Your heart pounds. Your jaw clenches. Your mind fills with thoughts, this always happens. They'll think I'm unprofessional. Why does this keep happening to me? Notice what happened. The first dart was the traffic, neutral. The second darts were all the thoughts and reactions you added. The traffic is just traffic. The story about the traffic creates the stress. Now imagine the same situation, but this time you notice the thoughts without believing them. You feel the tightness in your chest without adding a story. You watch the thoughts arise and pass without grabbing them. You are still late. But you are not suffering. You are just sitting in a car, breathing, watching life unfold. This is not a fantasy. This is what happens when you stop mistaking the clouds for the sky. Let me tell you about David. David was a software engineer who suffered from panic attacks. They would strike without warning, in meetings, on the subway, at home. His heart would race. His palms would sweat. A voice in his head would scream that he was dying. He went to doctors. Everything was normal. They gave him medication. It helped a little, but the fear remained. Therapists taught him breathing techniques. But the attacks kept coming. A friend suggested meditation. David was skeptical but desperate. He found a local Zen center. It was uncomfortable at first. His legs hurt. His mind raced. But he kept coming back. One day during meditation, a panic attack began to rise. The familiar sensations. The familiar thoughts. But this time, something was different. Instead of fighting it, David simply watched it. He didn't try to calm himself. He just sat, breathing, watching the panic arise like a wave. And then something remarkable happened. The wave peaked. It hung there. And then it began to recede. David watched it go, and when it was gone, he was still there. Still breathing. Still alive. Still okay. In that moment, David understood. Panic was not the enemy. It was just a wave of energy moving through his body. It felt terrible, yes. But it couldn't hurt him. The suffering came from his resistance. When he stopped resisting, the wave still came. But it also went. And he was still there, untouched. This is the psychological insight at the heart of Zen. You are not your panic. You are not your anxiety. You are the awareness in which these things appear. And awareness is never harmed by what it contains. Now we arrive at something essential. Something that has confused people for centuries. What actually is this awareness? How do we access it? And why, if it's always here, do we keep missing it? Let me tell you about a man named Marcus. Marcus was a successful architect. He designed award-winning buildings. He was respected by his peers. But inside, he felt like a fraud. Every morning, he woke with a knot in his stomach. Every decision at work felt like a test he might fail. He lived in constant fear of being exposed. One day, a colleague invited him to a meditation retreat. Marcus agreed, hoping it might help with his stress. The retreat was held in a quiet rural center. For days, Marcus sat with others, watching his breath, watching his mind. And what he saw horrified him. His mind was a non-stop machine of judgment and fear. Look at that person, they're sitting more still than you. You're doing this wrong. This is a waste of time. By the third day, Marcus wanted to leave. He went to speak with the teacher, a woman named Joshua. He told her everything. The fear, the judgment, the constant self-criticism. I'm failing at meditation, he said. My mind is too noisy. Joshua looked at him with kind eyes. Marcus, she said, who told you that meditation was about being peaceful? Marcus blinked. I just assumed. Meditation is not about making your mind quiet, Joshua said. Meditation is about noticing what your mind is doing. You have spent 3 days noticing. That is not failure. That is success. You are seeing, for the first time, the constant commentary you have carried your whole life. You are seeing the noise. And the one who sees the noise, that is what matters. Marcus didn't understand immediately. But something settled into him. He returned to the meditation hall. The noise continued. The self-criticism continued. But this time, he didn't fight it. He just watched it. And in the watching, he noticed something strange. The noise was still there, but he wasn't bothered by it the same way. It was like watching a radio play. The sounds were loud, but they weren't his sounds anymore. They were just sounds, arising in awareness. This is the first great discovery of Zen practice. You are not your thoughts. You are the one noticing your thoughts. The thoughts are objects. You are the subject. The thoughts are clouds. You are the sky. Most of us live our entire lives mistaking the clouds for the sky. We believe we are our thoughts. When a fearful thought arises, we become afraid. When a judgmental thought arises, we become judgmental. We are jerked around by every passing mental event. But what if you could relate to thoughts differently? What if you could see them as visitors, not as the owner of the house? What if you could let them come and go, without grabbing or pushing? This is not about becoming thoughtless. Thoughts will continue to arise. That is what minds do. It's about ceasing to be controlled by them. It's about discovering the space in which thoughts appear, a space untouched by any thought. Let me give you a modern psychological framework. Think of your mind as having two dimensions, content and context. Content is what arises, thoughts, emotions, sensations. Context is the awareness in which they arise. Most of us are completely absorbed in content. We are lost in the movie. Zen is about shifting attention from the movie to the screen. From the clouds to the sky. Here is a simple experiment you can do right now. Notice the thought, I am breathing in. Actually, don't just think it. Feel the air moving into your body. Now notice the thought, I am breathing out. Feel the air leaving. Now notice, who is noticing? There is the breath. There is the thought about the breath. And then there is the awareness that notices both. That awareness is what you are. Not the breath. Not the thought. The awareness. You have just had a direct taste of Zen. It's that simple. And also that difficult, because the mind will immediately try to turn this into another concept. But it's not a concept. It's just this. Right here. Right now. The simple fact of being aware. Let me tell you about a woman named Priya. Priya was a mother of 3 young children. Her life was chaos from morning until night. Diapers and school runs and meals and laundry and tantrums. She had no time for meditation, no quiet space, no peaceful moments. She felt like she was drowning. One evening, after finally getting the children to sleep, she collapsed on the couch, exhausted. She was too tired to think, too tired to worry, too tired to plan. She just sat there, staring at the wall. And in that moment of complete exhaustion, something opened. She felt something. A presence. A stillness. It was like she had been running her whole life and suddenly stopped, only to discover that what she had been running toward was with her all along. The next morning, the chaos returned. The children woke early. The demands began. But something was different. Priya moved through the morning, but there was a new quality to her experience. The chaos was still there, but there was also a stillness underneath it. The noise was still there, but there was a silence that contained it. She was doing the same things, but she was no longer lost in them. There was awareness now. And in that awareness, she found a peace that no external condition could touch. This is what Zen points toward. Not a peace that comes from perfect conditions. A peace that is always present, underneath all conditions. A peace that is not the opposite of chaos, but the container for chaos. A peace you don't have to create. Only recognize. Now we must address something that often confuses people. If awareness is always here, if we are already what we seek, then why does it feel so hidden? Why does the experience of most people feel like separation, struggle, and lack? Let me tell you a story about a monk named Tetsujin. Tetsujin lived in Japan during the 17th century. He was a devoted student of Zen, but he was also deeply troubled. He had studied with many teachers, read countless sutras, spent years in meditation. And yet, something remained elusive. He felt like a man standing outside a locked door, unable to enter. One day, he heard about a master who lived in a small temple in the mountains. Tetsujin traveled for weeks to reach him. When he finally arrived, he found an old man sweeping leaves in the courtyard. "Master," Tetsujin said, bowing deeply, "I have studied Zen for 20 years. I have practiced Zazen daily. I have memorized the teachings. But I still feel separate. I still feel like a seeker, not a finder. Please tell me, what am I missing?" The old master continued sweeping. He didn't look up. He didn't stop. He just kept moving the leaves with slow, deliberate strokes. Tetsujin waited. Then he asked again. "Master, please. I have come so far. I have given my whole life to this. What am I missing?" Finally, the old master stopped sweeping. He leaned on his broom and looked at Tetsujin with gentle eyes. "You are missing nothing," he said. "But you are trying too hard. You are like a person in a boat, rowing with all their strength, trying to reach the shore. Not realizing the boat has been tied to the dock the whole time." Tetsujin was stunned. He had spent 20 years rowing. 20 years striving. 20 years seeking. And all along, the boat had been tied to the dock. He was already there. He had always been there. He just hadn't noticed. This story points to a fundamental truth in Buddhism. The path is not about getting somewhere new. It is about realizing where you have always been. The Buddha did not become something he wasn't already. He simply woke up to what was always true. But here is the paradox. Even though you are already there, practice is still necessary. Even though the boat is tied to the dock, you may still need to open your eyes and look around. The seeking mind is the very thing that obscures what is being sought. But the seeking mind is also what eventually exhausts itself and gives up, allowing recognition to happen. Let me give you a modern example. Think about a time you lost something important. Your keys, perhaps. You searched everywhere. You looked on the counter, in your pockets, under the couch. You retraced your steps. You got frustrated. You may have even said aloud, "They have to be here somewhere." And then, exhausted, you stopped. You took a breath. You looked around one more time, but this time without the frantic energy. And there they were. Right on the table, in plain sight, where you had looked 3 times already. What changed? The keys didn't move. Your eyes didn't suddenly get better. What changed was the quality of your looking. The frantic seeking mind, with its anxiety and its assumptions, was creating a kind of blindness. When that mind relaxed, what had always been there became visible. This is exactly how it works with awakening. You are not trying to find something new. You are trying to see what has always been here, hidden in plain sight by the very act of seeking. Let me tell you about a woman named Simone. Simone was a high school teacher in a busy city. She loved her students, but she was exhausted. The constant noise, the behavioral issues, the endless paperwork, it drained her. She had tried meditation apps, yoga classes, even a silent retreat. Nothing seemed to help. She felt like she was running on empty. One Friday afternoon, after a particularly difficult week, she sat alone in her empty classroom. The students had gone home. The building was quiet. She was too tired to move, too tired to think, too tired to do anything except sit and stare out the window at the late afternoon light falling on the empty playground. She sat like that for a long time. No meditation technique. No effort to be mindful. Just sitting. And gradually, without her doing anything, a sense of peace began to seep into her. It wasn't excitement or bliss. It was something quieter. Something more like coming home after a long journey. She noticed the dust motes floating in the shafts of light. She noticed the distant sound of a lawnmower. She noticed the feeling of her own breath, moving in and out, all by itself. And in that noticing, she realized something that brought tears to her eyes. The peace she had been seeking through apps and classes and retreats, it had never been absent. It had been covered over by her striving. Her efforts to find peace had actually been pushing peace away, like someone stirring a pond to find stillness. Simone didn't become enlightened in that moment, at least not in any dramatic sense. But something shifted. She saw clearly that peace was not something to achieve. It was something to allow. It was not at the end of effort. It was underneath effort. It was always available, always present, always waiting to be noticed when the striving stopped. This is the psychological insight we must absorb. The seeking mind is a trap. It tells you that you are lacking, that you need something, that peace and fulfillment are somewhere else, in some future moment when you have meditated enough or understood enough or become enough. This very belief creates the experience of lack. The seeking creates the sense of separation. And then you seek to end the separation that the seeking itself created. The only way out is to see this trap clearly. To notice the seeking mind in action. To see how it keeps you running on a hamster wheel, chasing something that was never missing. And in that seeing, something relaxes. The striving softens. The seeking loses its grip. And what has always been here becomes visible, simply because you have stopped looking past it. Let's explore something uncomfortable. If we are already whole, if peace is always available, then what about real pain? Loss, illness, heartbreak, death. Does Zen ask us to pretend these don't hurt? No. Absolutely not. Let me tell you about a man named Victor. Victor was a physician. For 30 years, he sat with families as they said goodbye to loved ones. He was compassionate. But over the years, the weight accumulated. Then his own wife was diagnosed with a terminal illness. Victor watched her decline day by day. He held her hand as she took her last breath. After she was gone, he collapsed into grief so deep he couldn't function. A friend suggested a Zen center. Victor was not spiritual. But he was desperate. He went. The teacher was a woman named Chico. She didn't offer platitudes. She didn't say everything happens for a reason. She simply sat with him in silence. Week after week, Victor came and sat. One day, after many months, Victor spoke. I don't understand. I've been trying to find peace, to accept what happened. But the grief is still here. I'm failing. Chico looked at him with tenderness. Victor, who told you that peace means the absence of grief? Victor was silent. Grief is love with nowhere to go, Chico continued. It is not a problem to be solved. It is the natural expression of having loved deeply. Your grief is not standing in the way of peace. Your grief is part of your peace. Real peace is not the absence of pain. It is the capacity to hold pain without being destroyed by it. This is crucial. Zen does not promise a life without pain. Pain is inevitable. The Buddha said that. Birth is painful. Aging is painful. Sickness is painful. Death is painful. Losing what you love is painful. These come with being alive. What Zen offers is freedom from the added suffering, the resistance, the story that says, this shouldn't be happening, the fear that the pain will never end. Let me give you a modern example. Imagine holding a burning coal. It hurts. Your natural response is to drop it. But what if you held on tighter? What if you spent years cursing the universe for giving you this coal? That would be insane. But this is what we do with emotional pain. We hold on. We rehearse the story. We add layers of judgment. Then we wonder why we can't find peace. The burning coal is the unavoidable pain. The holding on is the added suffering. Zen is not about making the coal stop burning. It is about learning to open your hand. Here is another original story. A woman came to a Zen master in deep distress. Her only son had died suddenly. She was consumed by grief. She could not eat, could not sleep. Master, she said, please give me something to ease my pain. A teaching, a practice. I cannot go on. The master looked at her with compassion. I will give you something. But first, you must do something for me. Go into the village and find me a mustard seed from a house that has never known sorrow. Bring me that seed, and I will give you what you need. The woman's heart lifted. She had something to do. She went to the first house. A kind woman answered. We have many mustard seeds. Take whatever you need. But wait, the grieving woman said. Has this house ever known sorrow? The kind woman's face softened. My husband died 3 years ago. My youngest child is still sick. We have known much sorrow. The grieving woman moved to the next house, and the next, and the next. At every house, she found the same. Everyone had a story of loss. She visited dozens of homes. Not one was without grief. Finally, exhausted, she returned to the master. I could not find it. Every house has known sorrow. I am no different. The master nodded gently. You came seeking relief from your pain. But pain is not yours alone. It belongs to everyone. You are not separate in your suffering. You are united with all beings in it. This is the mustard seed I wanted you to find. The woman sat with this. And then, for the first time since her son died, she felt something shift. Not the end of grief, but the end of isolation. Her pain was still there, but it was held now in something larger. It was held in the shared experience of all human beings. This is the wisdom of Zen. It does not deny pain. It includes pain. It holds pain. It makes space for pain within the vastness of awareness. And in that space, pain is no longer the enemy. It is just what is happening, along with everything else. It is a cloud passing through the sky. And the sky is never damaged by the clouds. Now we arrive at a question that may be stirring in you. This all sounds beautiful: awareness, peace, holding pain with compassion. But how do we actually live this? How do we take these teachings from the meditation cushion into the messy, chaotic, demanding reality of everyday life? Let me tell you about a man named Carlos. Carlos was a bus driver in a busy city. His days were a relentless cycle of traffic, delays, impatient passengers, and the same streets passing by in endless repetition. He had been driving the same route for 17 years. He knew every pothole, every traffic light, every regular passenger by face if not by name. Carlos had also been practicing Zen for 5 years. He sat every morning before his shift. He attended retreats when he could. He felt peaceful on his cushion, centered in the quiet of the meditation hall. But the moment he stepped onto that bus, something shifted. The peace evaporated. The old irritations returned. The honking, the complaints, the person who didn't have exact change, it all got under his skin. One day, he went to see his teacher, a woman named Sung. He told her about his struggle. On the cushion, I am peaceful. I am aware. I am present. But on the bus, I lose it all. The peace doesn't follow me into my life. Sung smiled. Carlos, where did you leave your peace? Did you forget it on the cushion? Is it still sitting there in the meditation hall, waiting for you to come back and claim it? Carlos frowned. No, I suppose not. Then where could it be? Sung asked. If peace is truly something you discover, not something you create, then it cannot be left behind. It cannot be lost. It can only be covered over. On the bus, what covers it? Carlos thought for a moment. The irritation. The frustration. The impatience. And what are those? Sung asked. Where do they live? They live in my mind, Carlos said. They are thoughts. Feelings. Exactly, Sung said. On the cushion, you learn to see thoughts and feelings as clouds passing through the sky. On the bus, you forget. You get pulled into the clouds. You become the clouds. The practice is not to bring the piece from the cushion onto the bus. The practice is to remember, on the bus, that you are still the sky. This is the heart of bringing Zen into daily life. It is not about transporting a special state from your meditation cushion into the world. It is about recognizing that the awareness you touch in meditation is already here, always here, even in traffic, even in conflict, even in boredom. The clouds change. The sky does not. Let me give you a modern example. Think about the last time someone cut you off in traffic. What happened inside you? Probably a surge of anger, a flash of righteousness, maybe some words spoken aloud that you wouldn't say in polite company. In that moment, you were completely identified with the cloud. You were the anger. You were the righteousness. There was no space between you and the reaction. Now imagine the same situation with a different internal response. The car cuts you off. The anger arises, that is natural, that is the first start. But in this version, there is a moment of recognition. A tiny space opens. In that space, you notice the anger. You feel it as a sensation in your body, heat, tightness, pressure. You see the thoughts that come with it, how dare they, people are so selfish. But you don't become them. You witness them. The anger is still there. But you are not possessed by it. The cloud passes. The sky remains. This is not about suppressing anger. It is about relating to anger differently. It is about discovering that you can feel anger without being angry. You can feel rage without becoming rageful. The feeling is real. The story is optional. Let me tell you about a woman named Imani. Imani was a nurse in a busy emergency room. Her job was chaos incarnate. Sirens, screams, blood, death, desperate families, exhausted colleagues. She had trained for years to handle the medical aspects, but nothing prepared her for the emotional toll. She went home most nights feeling hollowed out, carrying the weight of everyone she couldn't save. She started seeing a therapist who also practiced Zen. The therapist didn't give her techniques to manage the stress. Instead, she asked Imani one question: when you are in the ER, in the middle of the chaos, who is it that notices the chaos? Imani thought about it. I don't know. I'm just in it. I'm the chaos. Look again, the therapist said. Next time you're in a critical moment, just for an instant, notice, there is the chaos, and there is something that knows the chaos. That something is you. The next week, a critical patient arrived. A child, unconscious, parents screaming. Imani's team moved with precision. And in the middle of it all, for just a split second, Imani remembered. She didn't stop working. She didn't step back. But she noticed. There was the chaos. There was the urgency. There were the screams. And there was something else. Something still. Something watching. Something that was not disturbed by any of it. That moment lasted only a second. But it changed everything. Imani realized that the hollowed-out feeling at the end of her shifts came not from the work itself, but from being completely lost in it. When she remembered the sky, even for an instant, the work continued. But she was not consumed by it. This is the practice. Not escaping life. Not finding a quiet cave. but bringing the recognition of awareness into the very middle of life. Into traffic. Into the ER. Into the argument with your partner. Into the mundane repetition of the bus route. You are the sky. The clouds will keep coming. That is their nature. But you don't have to become them. You can let them pass. You can rest as the vast, open space that holds everything and is touched by nothing. We have covered much ground together. The nature of awareness. The difference between pain and suffering. The recognition that you are the sky, not the clouds. But there is one more piece that deserves attention. Perhaps the most important piece. And that is the question of action. If I am not my thoughts, if I am not my emotions, if I am just the aware space in which everything appears, then how do I make decisions? How do I choose what to do? How do I live an ethical, meaningful life? Does Zen lead to passivity? Does it make us less engaged with the world? Let me tell you about a man named Kenji. Kenji was a young man who came to study with a famous Zen master. He was eager, sincere, and full of questions. He had read about enlightenment, about emptiness, about the nature of no self. He wanted to understand. One day, he asked the master, if all is empty, if there is no self, then what is the point of doing anything? Why help others? Why be good? Why not just sit around and do nothing? The master didn't answer with words. Instead, he picked up a tea kettle and poured Kenji a cup of tea. He filled it to the brim. Then he kept pouring. Tea spilled over the cup, onto the table, onto Kenji's robes. Kenji jumped up. Master! What are you doing? The cup is full. The master put down the kettle and looked at Kenji calmly. This cup is like your understanding. It is so full of ideas about emptiness that it cannot receive anything real. You think emptiness means nothing matters. But emptiness is not nothing. Emptiness is the absence of fixed, separate self. And when there is no fixed self to protect and defend, compassion flows naturally. You don't help others because you should. You help others because there is no separation between you and them. Their suffering is your suffering. Their well-being is your well-being. This is the great secret of Zen. True emptiness is not blankness. It is fullness. It is the removal of the illusion of separation, which allows love and compassion to flow without obstruction. Let me give you a modern psychological framework for this. Think about the times you have acted with the most kindness, the most generosity, the most genuine care for another person. In those moments, were you thinking about yourself? Were you calculating what you would get in return? Probably not. In those moments, self-concern dropped away. There was just the situation and the natural response. You helped because helping was what the moment called for. This is what Zen points toward. Not the elimination of action, but the purification of action. Action that arises from awareness rather than from ego. Action that is not contaminated by self-interest, by fear, by the need to be seen as good. Let me tell you about a woman named Yuki. Yuki lived in a small village. She was not a teacher, not a monk, not anyone special. She was just a woman who grew vegetables and sold them at the market. But something was different about Yuki. People noticed it. When you talked to her, she was completely there. Not planning what to say next. Not judging you. Just present. Just listening. One day, a young mother came to Yuki in distress. Her child was sick, and she had no money for medicine. Yuki listened. She didn't offer advice. She didn't say everything would be okay. She just listened. Then she reached into her pocket and gave the woman all the money she had earned that week at market. It was not a calculated decision. It was not something she thought about. It was simply what arose in that moment. The woman thanked her, crying, and hurried away. Another villager who had witnessed this said to Yuki, "That was very generous. But now you have no money for yourself. How will you eat?" Yuki looked at her with genuine surprise. She hadn't considered that. Not because she was naive, but because in the moment of giving, there was no self to consider. The action was complete in itself. The question of what would happen to Yuki later was a separate matter, a thought that would arise later. And when it arose, she would meet it the same way, with presence, with openness, with whatever response the moment required. This is the mind of Zen in action. It is not passive. It is not detached. It is radically engaged, but engaged without the clinging and grasping that usually accompanies action. It is like a mirror. The mirror reflects whatever comes before it, beautiful or ugly, pleasant or unpleasant, but it is never stained by what it reflects. It reflects perfectly in each moment, and in the next moment, it is ready to reflect something else. You can live like this. You can act like this. Not perfectly, not all the time. But more and more. The practice is simple. Before you act, pause. Notice the thoughts, the fears, the desires that are present. Don't push them away. Just notice them. And then, from that noticing, let the action arise naturally. Not from the ego's calculation. From the situation itself. From the awareness that holds the situation. This is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming real. It is about acting from your true nature rather than from the conditioned patterns of fear and desire. And when you act from that place, something remarkable happens. Your actions become lighter. They become more effective. They leave less residue of regret and anxiety. They are simply what was called for, in that moment, by that situation. And when the moment passes, you are free. Free to meet the next moment with fresh eyes. Free to respond to what is, rather than reacting from what was. We have traveled far together. We have explored the nature of awareness. We have touched the difference between pain and suffering. We have glimpsed the sky behind the clouds. We have seen how Zen offers not escape from life, but a deeper way of living within it. And now we arrive at the end of our journey together. But in Zen, there is no end. There is only this moment, and this moment, and this moment. The path is not a line you complete. It is a circle you keep walking, each step fresh, each breath new. Let me leave you with one final story. A student came to his master after 10 years of practice. He had sat zazen daily. He had studied the koans. He had attended retreat after retreat. And still, he felt incomplete. Still, he struggled. Still, he suffered. He said to the Master, "I have given everything to this practice. I have done everything you asked. And yet, I do not feel enlightened. I still get angry. I still feel fear. I still want things I cannot have. What more must I do?" The Master looked at the student with infinite tenderness. He didn't offer a new technique. He didn't prescribe more effort. He simply asked, "Tell me, what is it that struggles? What is it that suffers?" The student opened his mouth to answer. But no answer came. He searched his mind for the right words, the correct teaching, the proper response. But the harder he searched, the more empty his mind became. Finally, after a long silence, he said, "I don't know." The Master smiled. "That not knowing," he said, "is the door. Walk through. This is the final teaching. The mind that thinks it knows, that mind is the obstacle. The mind that is certain it understands, that has all the answers, that can explain everything, that mind is the prison. But the mind that rests in not knowing, that is open, that is curious, that is willing to meet each moment fresh, that mind is already free. You do not need to become anything other than what you already are. You do not need to achieve any special state. You do not need to wait for some future moment when everything will finally be okay. The seeking itself is what creates the sense of lack. The chasing is what keeps the prize always out of reach. You are already here. You are already aware. You are already the sky in which all clouds appear and disappear. The clouds will keep coming. That is their nature. Thoughts will arise. Emotions will flow. Situations will unfold. But you are not required to become any of them. You can rest as the vast, open space that holds everything and is touched by nothing. The suffering comes from the seeking. The peace is in the stopping. Not stopping your life. Not becoming passive or checked out. Stopping the endless chase. Stopping the belief that something is missing. Stopping the habit of looking past this moment for a better one. Right now, as you listen to these final words, notice. Just notice. Notice the sounds around you. Perhaps distant traffic, perhaps the hum of a machine, perhaps silence itself. Notice the weight of your body against whatever supports it. Notice the breath moving through you, all by itself, without any effort on your part. And then notice the one who notices. That presence. That awareness. That has never been born. That will never die. That has never been wounded and needs no healing. That lacks nothing and seeks nothing. That is what you are. Not what you will become. What you already are. The great Zen master Lingji once shouted to his students, "In your mass of naked flesh, there is a true person of no rank. Constantly they go in and out of the gates of your face. If you haven't recognized them yet, look. Look. What are you looking for? The one who is looking is what you seek." Thank you for spending this time with us at Monk's Temple. If these teachings have touched you, if something in you has recognized something true, please subscribe and join our community. We are walking this path together, reminding each other of what we have always known. And remember, as you go back into your life, into work, into relationships, into traffic, into the kitchen, into the quiet moments alone, the peace you seek is not somewhere else. It is here. It is always here. In the next breath. In the next step. In the next ordinary, miraculous moment. The gate is wide open. Walk through.